Did anybody here, other than my friend in the back with her candy cane, did anybody else notice a difference in taste? Okay, what did you notice, Buzz?
The first taste, it wasn't too bad. This last one, it was really pretty ugly.
Well, what does ugly mean?
It made some kind of a mushy kind of a feeling in my mouth that was foreign. I couldn't quite.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was different from the first one.
Yes.
Very different.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Who else?
It almost has an aftertaste. It doesn't taste good.
Okay, an aftertaste. How would you describe the taste? Is there a label you can give it?
Sort of metallic, almost.
Metallic. Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Who else? Who else? Go ahead, right here.
Waxy.
Waxy. Oh, interesting. Yeah, waxy. That's one I haven't heard before. I've heard
This is not fair. This is not nice. Chocolate is good.
Wait a minute. Yeah. But
chocolate
listen,
is desirable.
Don't blame me. I only work here. Okay. You can go ahead and get addicted very easily. Just go tomorrow, the next day or something. Just go ahead and have some. That's fine. By the way, sometimes this one session here will break somebody's addiction. I've done that. In fact, we're on tape doing that in our EFT course, a gal with chocolate, as a matter of fact. I talked to her husband. She was 25 is what she said she was, on a scale of 0 to 10. And 3 months later, I was talking to her husband. She hadn't had any chocolate since. She just didn't want it, okay? Now, I'm not advertising to you that breaks the addiction. This breaks the addiction, but it does in some cases. It's not something I would advertise to your client, but don't be surprised if someday they just simply don't want it. I'll tell you another example I had. I was dealing with a lady she was at a break one time, and she had a coffee addiction. And I remember we were just standing here, and there's a fellow standing here. His name was Joe. I remember his name. And we were talking, and I was doing this thing with her coffee, having her smell the coffee and so on and so forth. And she didn't really want to finish this coffee, and that was fine. And I wasn't even talking to Joe. He was just watching. And he wasn't even tapping, by the way. He was just watching. And he called me up sometime later. I'm forgetting how long now, several weeks later. And he said, I haven't had any coffee since. I was just watching you do it, okay? And you'll see this, but people will just watch it, and it's like they're tapping on themselves, even not physically tapping, because you can do this, by the way, even in your imagination. It does not work quite as efficiently or as consistently as doing the physical tapping, but oftentimes we'll have people imagine the tapping, and it will work nicely. Imagine going to the MRI machine where you can't even move anything to tap. Okay? Imagine people without arms and legs. Imagine driving your car where you really shouldn't be tapping yourself, et cetera, or maybe you shouldn't be, and so on. Imagining the tapping. And often we get results like that. We also get results, and this is on my EFT list. If you've been on it, you've seen this. People will tap on someone else with their intention. Like if I'm dealing with you, Buzz, and you and I are talking, you have an issue, I will just tap with my intention. Eyebrows, side of eye, et cetera, and they're reporting results. It's really interesting. See, we're stepping into something really important here, and it may go well beyond just the tapping procedures. We've got some spiritual things. I mean, all this is evidence of our oneness. Go ahead.
I didn't understand the last thing you said.
Well,
the intention.
Whatever it was wise, and I forgot. Approximately, what was it?
Something about the intention.
Well, I was talking like if you and I were. Like if you were a client of mine, and you said, I have a so-and-so issue. Some people report results, me working with you, without me tapping or you tapping, without physically tapping. I'll just, with my intention, imagine tapping on you. What I do is I imagine I'm you. Okay. That's the way I do it anyway. I imagine I'm you, and I'll sit there and tap on myself without my fingers.
Okay.
I just imagine it. And I don't always get consent. I get some results that will just startle you. Okay. Other results, I didn't do anything. And I'll tell you what I think happens there. Let me give you an example of this. We'll get back to chocolate in a second. I was sitting on an airplane months ago, and the fellow next to me, I was in the aisle seat, the fellow next to me, his knee was going like this. Going, he was bouncing up and down like that. And so I said to myself, well, this fellow's a little nervous. We were still on the ground. He's a little nervous. I didn't know why or anything, but he was talking to a buddy of his next to him. He just kept going like that. So I thought, well, okay, he's a little anxious. That's the way I took it. And so I just went inside myself, and I closed my eyes as though I was him. Okay? I said, okay, Okay, even though I have this anxiety, and I just say it to myself, and then I would mentally tap myself here and here, all the way down, like that. Took 10, 15 seconds to do it. I opened my eyes, and his knee was steady. Okay? Coincidence? Could be. Okay? So I'm enough of a scientist to know that 1 out of 1 doesn't really make a scientific study. Okay? So we're going on a way that we get up in the airplane. He's still talking to his buddy, and after a while I see that knee going again. I close my eyes like this. I do this. 15 seconds later, I look down at his knee. Not moving. Well, now it's 2 out of 2. It gets my attention, but it's hardly a scientific study. And I don't know, 20 minutes later or so, he's talking to his buddy. His knee's not moving, but he's doing this. Okay? I thought, well, he's still under tension. He's got some tension of some kind or other. So I closed my eyes, and I imagined, him not having the tension, and I imagined his arms being in his lap. And 15, 20 seconds later, I opened my eyes. Okay? 3 out of 3. All right? I did one more for his shaky knee. Fine. I did one more for this before we were done. Fine. 5 out of 5. Okay? Now, that'll get your attention. I don't care how scientific you are. And even though there's no official numbers behind that, you do that 5 out of 5, and it gets beyond coincidence. Okay? And I've had all kinds of, those of you who are on our list, have all kinds of reading experience where people have done this, with intention, on their pets, for example, and so on and so forth, and people. However, one time I was sitting across the breakfast table from a lady by the name of Jackie, and it was partly a business breakfast, but anyway, I knew she had some emotional issues, and she wanted to deal with it. So I said, okay. And it had to do with an ex-husband of hers, and so on. So we did some tapping. Or I beg your pardon. I said, let's not tap. You just close your eyes, and I'll close my eyes, and we'll just do this intentional thing. Okay? I was gonna kind of like show her how it worked, because I was so proud of myself for doing this thing with this other fellow. There's an important lesson here. I'm telling you this story for an important lesson. Okay? Didn't work. Did not work at all. And so we went ahead and physically tapped. We got some relief. Now, why would it be that I could sit there on this airplane with this perfect stranger and have, and this thing apparently works so very nicely, and yet here I am with this lady, and I strike out? Can we have a microphone here for John?
Ego, emotional involvement.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't have myself out of the way. In the first case, I had myself out of the way. I was experimenting. I didn't have my ego out there. I didn't say, look, here comes the great healer in the sky. I'm going to fix your leg. I didn't do any of that, okay? And I got myself out of the way, and I just allowed that to happen. I was curious about the result, rather than trying to say the result I must have. Whereas with her, in a way, I had my reputation on the line. Not really reputation so much, but, my skills were sort of on the line. Here I am, I'm the fellow who does the EFT and does all the tapes and everything else, and if anybody can do it, I can do it, kind of thing. And I struck out because I was trying really hard. I was really trying. I had myself in the way. Very important phrase. I had myself in the way. I was not out of the way. Back to chocolate, by the way. Who else had a funny taste? Go ahead, Myron.
First time I tasted it, it was, I don't know, sort of symphonic. Everything was together, working well. It was a wonderful thing to close my eyes and just go right into it.
Yes.
When I tasted it the second time, that didn't happen. And then I began to be aware of what it actually tasted like, and it didn't taste natural.
Okay, good phrase. Good phrase. It doesn't taste natural. It's a rather unnatural piece of stuff to put in your body anyway, if you think about it. But see, your body doesn't tune into that until you've done something like, I'm calling it normalizing, but there's something going on here when you straighten yourself out. Your body is more attuned to, that doesn't belong here. Okay?
Yeah.
Not in here.
Amazing.
Okay, yeah. You want to say that a little louder?
It's amazing.
Okay, I wanted to make sure the camera got it and everything, all right? No showman here, you got it. Who else had a taste thing? Go ahead, Maxine.
I noticed a difference. I don't know. I guess it was more like the unnatural type of thing. But I also noticed that before the second time we tapped, I'm looking at it and saying, well, that's all right. I'm going to get to eat this later anyway.
Okay.
As you were talking over there, I found myself putting the papers, putting it back up and.
Oh,
there.
okay.
And I don't
Yeah.
care whether I have it later
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah. How many people? Thank you. How many people here would still like to eat that chocolate? It's okay. Just want to know what your hand is. Okay, we got some hands here. Okay. How many would just as soon or could very easily walk away from it? Either don't want it all or could very easily walk away. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Now let me remind you again. We're doing this in group. Okay. I really don't know what all issues you have. You may have some real issues about chocolate that we haven't even individually we haven't even addressed here, etc. We have a comment back here. Candy cane lady.
I found that when I was doing the tapping, my craving increased. It frightened me.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
Does that?
You know,
Can you
I've
speak
heard
to
that.
that?
I've heard that like on a temporary basis.
Yeah, then it
I've heard
went.
that before. I won't say it's rare, but it does happen. You need to be aware of that. People say, well, I really want that now. You know, I wouldn't even think about it before, but now you have it under my nose and I'm doing this tapping. One thing that could be happening is, well, they weren't thinking about the chocolate or whatever it was, and now you have them smell it or taste it or something like that. And so now the craving comes up, and then you try to tap for it and did not get by the setup, the psychological reversal. Okay, so the craving just keeps going. Okay, I mean that would be an explanation for what you had. Okay, but on the other hand, that candy cane is not going to be eaten apparently.
No.
Okay, all right, interesting. Tell you what I'd like to do now with the little time we have left, and we have 25 minutes left, and I don't know how much we can do here, but I want to spend a little time with you on phobias, because oftentimes I think phobias are a little misunderstood as to how this process works. The reason I say that is because I hear a number of people that do phobia work that will emphasize the fast nature of a phobia. Somebody's afraid of snakes, tap, tap, tap. Oh, no more snake phobia, gone, okay? And that certainly does happen. But to me, phobias, if they're simple, delimited phobias, that kind of thing happens and it's a jaw dropper and it's really fun to do and so on. But oftentimes phobias are, what's the right term? There are places to start for a lot of other issues. Phobias reflect, is the right term, a number of other issues people have. Let me give you a good example. I was in Maine 2 or 3 years ago, and there were a couple ladies that had spider phobias there. And so I thought, oh, well, okay, great, so we'll do a spider phobia thing, And so both of them came up, we started tapping, and one of them was fine on this. But the other one, what I would do, I didn't have a spider present, so I was trying to manufacture one, so I just go like that, And hardly a real spider, but some kind of a test at the moment. But she would go like this, okay? I mean, she really didn't like that. That spider thing, okay. And so I go, okay, trying to find another aspect, tap, 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 spider. And well, I tell you, I mean, I worked for 15 minutes, which is an eternity on this, and I was making no headway whatsoever. Doesn't happen very often, making no headway whatsoever. And I was under the impression then that, phobias are limited things, and you just simply wave your hand, and I'm exaggerating some, but they're fairly easy to deal with. But not this one, I'll tell you. And I've had snake phobias and some other things that it took quite a while. I talked to her later on the phone. I said, what was it about that spider phobia? I mean, how come we couldn't get beyond that? And this was an experienced therapist who'd taken care of lots of phobias herself with this procedure, okay? But boy, let me tell you, this one was not going to budge. She said, Gary, I figured it out. She says, if you took care of that phobia, then I would have to face some other issues, okay? And as it turns out, she has a substantial blank in her memory at early ages, which is, of course, indicative of possible sexual abuse and so on and so forth. And she didn't, to her, holding on to that phobia was a reason why she didn't have to get into the pain of the other. She didn't want to go remember what else had happened and so on and so forth. And that, by the way, is a great big reason for psychological reversal and the need for the setup. Sometimes there is a secondary gain that is so big time, I don't care what you do, you're not getting by the presenting issue. You're just not getting by it. And that to the artist in this says, it's not that EFT's not working on this spider phobia. It's that there's something else going on. What is it? Okay, and that's where the detective comes out. Okay, Now, as it turns out, she's dealt with this issue with another therapist or a therapist at some point and has gotten some relief. I don't know the whole story, but I wanted to point out to you is that sometimes phobias can just vanish, lifelong fears, okay, and other times they are reflections of a lot of other work that you can do. And that's by the way, it's joyous to watch that because when you can get rid of the phobia, in that case, you have gotten rid of all kinds of other things underneath it, okay? And you've got rid of a whole bunch more than just a delimited phobia. What I would like to do now is do a little phobia work. How many of you here have an aversion to going up high on a building? Say how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay. You folks close your eyes just for a moment, if you would, please. I want to ask you to do something for me. I want you to imagine yourself being on top of a 40-story building. And there's a railing there, but you're way up on top, way up there. And I want you to go to the little railing there and look over it. Look way down there at the little cars and trees. And what I'd like to know is how many of you, as we did that, got a noticeable chunk, if you will, in your system, in your stomach, something like that, you know. Just think about it. 1, 2, give me a number for it. Estimate a number that happened for you just then. A 7. How about you? 6?
10.
Okay. Who else raised their hand here? Okay. Well, what numbers do we have over here? 7? Okay. Who else? 9. All right. Well, all the ones I asked for numbers, you mind coming on up? It would be okay? We're going to work on your height phobia. Ooh, roll your eyes. You guys come on up, could you? Just stand right here. Now, what I'm going to try to do is to develop, phobia. We're going to use the same process we've used all day long, okay, on these phobias. And I don't know what else is going to come up, but okay. Your original number was?
7.
You didn't have a number.
10.
Oh, 10. Did you say 10?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
7.
9. Okay. Do you have a fear of public speaking? A little bit. Okay. Are you nervous being up here? Okay. On a scale of 0 to 10, how nervous are you about being up here?
Not as nervous as the height.
Not as nervous as the height. Okay. I may be working on 2 things at once here. Okay. So 7, 10,
7.
and 9. Okay. Now, let me ask you about the height. I had you go to that railing, and you looked over.
Yeah.
Okay. Did it remind you of anything?
No.
It just, looking over just got to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Did it remind you of anything?
No, I just got a pit in my stomach and I started to sweat. My hands started.
Yeah, you sure did, didn't you? How about you, Nate?
Yes.
No, that's okay. They can hear it from here. Okay. Yes, what? I'm sorry.
Yes, Grand Canyon.
Oh, Grand Canyon. So you have an experience back to the Grand Canyon?
Yes.
Oh, okay. What was the experience?
The fear of slipping, falling on the ice and going down when I was climbing down into the Grand Canyon.
Okay, now is that a fear of heights or fear of slipping and falling on the ice?
I was afraid of falling over.
Okay. When you were looking over, this is an important distinction. When you were looking over that railing in your mind,
Yes,
you put yourself back in the Grand Canyon.
yes,
Okay. If you were to stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon, I've never been there myself, but I'm assuming you can stand at the edge of it and look down.
yes,
If you were to do that, but there's no ice around, would it bother you?
yes,
Okay. How do you know it would bother you?
because I did it.
Because you did it. Oh, okay. And what about you? Did this thing remind you of anything? It didn't. Okay. Just looking over did it to you. Okay. Right here. Even though I have this fear of heights.
Even though I have this fear of heights.
You can say, even though I have the fear of Grand Canyon heights.
Even though I have the fear of the Grand Canyon.
And looking over that railing,
Looking over that rail.
I deeply, completely accept myself.
Deeply.
Even though I have this fear of heights, Grand Canyon heights, and looking over that railing,
Looking over that rail.
I deeply, completely accept myself.
Deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I have this fear of heights,
Even though I have that fear.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Deeply and completely accept.
Okay, right here, fear of heights,
Fear of heights.
fear of heights,
Fear of heights.
fear of heights, looking over that railing,
Looking over that rail.
looking over that railing, looking over that railing, looking over that railing. Okay, what's that? I didn't, okay. All right. Even though I still have some of this fear of heights. I deeply, completely accept myself.
Deeply.
Even though I still don't like looking over that railing of the Grand Canyon. I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I feel a little foolish standing up here.
Even though I feel
Tapping on myself. I deeply and completely accept myself for that. And for looking over the railing.
and for looking over the railing.
Okay. Remaining looking over the railing. Remaining looking over the railing of Grand Canyon. Remaining looking over the railing. 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 I may be one of the most tapped on people on the planet, by the way. Without actually closing your eyes and going into that, what do you think your number would be if you were to do that?
2.
A 2. Okay. What tells you that?
It just comes to me.
It just comes to you. Okay. All right. You think you'd still be a 10 if you?
No, I think I'd be more like a 5.
Okay.
2.
2. A 7. You'd be a little improved. Okay. Not you. Don't you do this yet. But the rest of, would you mind closing your eyes, going back into your circumstance, and try to get yourself worked up on it, and tell me what happens.
Okay, I can stand there.
Okay. Now, what happened before that gave you a 7?
I wanted to go back.
You wanted to go back. Did you have a physical feeling in your stomach?
My feet, stomach.
Okay, but it didn't happen this time.
No.
Okay. Now, let me ask you out here, before we go any farther, there is no building here. I mean, we're not looking over the top. There is no way to really test this, is there? Okay, so we don't really know. All we do know is when he thinks about it, he has a noticeable change, correct? Okay, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that accurate? Okay. We'll never know till we get him out there. Now, when he gets out there, he may have some aspects coming up. We need to tap on them then. But also what may well happen is this little round or two we did may have obliterated your fear of height. Okay? What I'd like to have you do now, if you wouldn't mind, is it Don or Donald? Don, okay. While I'm spending time with Gene, I'd like to have you close your eyes, and I'd like to have you try to get upset. Go to the tallest building you can find. Go to the most traumatic height thing you've ever found. I want you to literally try to get yourself upset, okay? And let me know how you do. Stop if you do, okay? But anyway, go ahead, close your eyes and give it a shot and tell me where you get to.
I mean, I'm actually distanced from that. I mean, I don't have the sensation in my stomach, and
You don't have the
that
sensation?
heart palpitation.
Okay.
I don't have the reeling back in my body. I mean,
Okay.
Right.
Are you like a 0 on it or something?
Yeah, I'm-
At least the way you think about
right.
it.
Yeah, when I think of that.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. How you doing?
Fine.
You couldn't get yourself worked up about it?
No, I walked out on the wing of a plane.
We're not going to try that real time, okay?
But I had a parachute.
You had okay. All right. But even doing that, at least in your mind as you think about it.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
fun.
All right. Please understand this. We may well have, while he was standing here with no building or anything else around, taken care of that height phobia. Okay. Out of 10 people, 3 or 4, that'll be the case. That's a guess on the statistics. Okay. I haven't done lots of statistics, but thinking about it, what I'd like to have you do, if you would, Gene, is do what I asked Don to do, and that is to go through the issue. Or find someplace, try to get yourself upset. Go to a taller building, go to a different circumstance, go to something that maybe you get upset. Exaggerate the sights and sounds and try to do it, okay? How'd you do with the Grand Canyon?
Good.
Well, what does that mean?
2.
2.
I was able to visualize it without any constriction in my chest.
Okay. Were you closing your eye? I forgot. Did I have you close your eyes and you got to a 2?
And
Well, how do you know you were a 2?
my chest didn't constrict.
Well, that could be a 0. I mean, why? How do you know you have anything?
I guessed.
Oh, you guessed.
Because I also found myself connecting it to something else.
Like
Jumping out of a helicopter with a parachute.
something you did in the past?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. See, that's the point I was going to make to you. See, we're talking about a Grand Canyon phobia. We apparently have done something with that, at least as you stand here and talk about it anyway. But something else comes up, and it's another totally different issue, seemingly. Okay. It would be my speculation that when you were in the Grand Canyon slipping on the ice or whatever, that is a replay in some fashion
Yes.
from once upon a time. As you think about the helicopter trip. Don't think about it yet, but if you were to vividly imagine it, could you get higher than a 2?
Yes, it would be higher than a 2.
Like what? What would you guess it to be?
4.
A 4. Okay. How'd you do in there?
I did fine, and then I got to a place where I was like out on a railing that was just like really, where there was just air, and I got that sort of palpitation, and I also thought about, I remember when I was on a fire escape, when I was a child, and it was those ones where you had the metal bars.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fear for me was then not of the height, but it was that I was gonna fall. I mean, so that when it wasn't really the height, it was like the looking down and being afraid that I was gonna fall.
Okay. Now, let me point something out. Thank you. Thank you. The fear of heights is often not the fear of heights. Okay? Let me ask you, you had this feeling you were going to fall. Okay?
Right.
Could you go in an airplane 6 miles up in the air where they go, sit on the window seat, and look down without getting that same feeling?
Right. I can do
You can do that? Okay. Is it a height phobia? I mean, what's going on here? Here you are a few stories up, in some kind of a building or some circumstance like that, and she gets this sensation, this phobic response, if you will, and yet she can be in an airplane far higher, far, far, far higher, and yet, who cares? What's going on? Go ahead. We need a microphone. Go ahead, Myra.
I think if there's a direct line that you can actually see connecting where you are with down below, at least that's what it was for me in fear of flying a kite.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at it up there. I did this at another conference, and somebody tapped out the height. But then I went in a Ferris wheel, and I got up to the top, and it was swinging, and I became frightened, but nowhere near the way it was before. Yeah. But I think it's connecting. There's a straight line between looking and where it's down.
Let me suggest a parallel to that. Okay. And that is when you're on top of a tall building, for example, what you're looking at are converging lines. And it's a fear, if you will, or a response to converging lines. You feel like you're going to be drawn down. You said something about it like you're going to fear of falling, like you're going to be drawn down. And it's these converging lines. They're even there on the Grand Canyon, although they're not as delineated as they are in a building, But it's actually a response to the lines. Freeway driving, by the way, is often a response to the converging lines. Okay, it's a response to the converging lines.
A kite.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I couldn't. That may not be related at all. It may be something else. Okay, but there is a line there. That's what drew me to say that. Okay. And I don't know what that parallel is for you flying the kite or whatever it may be. It could be something totally different. Okay. So you could get to a 4 on the helicopter thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, do this. Was this a war experience?
No, it was military, but it wasn't war.
It wasn't war. Okay, even though I had this helicopter experience.
Even though I had this helicopter
experience. And you tap for your height thing too while we're doing this, okay? You think of height experience. Okay? Even though I had helicopter experience.
Even though I had this helicopter experience.
I deeply and completely accept myself. What happened in the helicopter? Just keep tapping.
I was the first to go. And
you were the first to go. Go ahead. And you what?
And all the way up as it circled, I had this growing anxiety that I would have to be the first one to jump out.
You don't have it now, do you? You still have it, don't you? I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, my thermometer says a 6, actually. And the sweat on your forehead is even more. Am I right?
A little bit.
Okay, what did that mean to you, by the way, the helicopter, other than just as a helicopter thing?
Well, it was a pride thing. I would have felt shame if I wouldn't have done it. I had the choice of not doing it.
Uh-huh.
But there was a pride thing. I had to do it and fight the anxiety and the fear.
Oh, okay. The fear of?
Of the chute not opening and facing the reality that I may perish.
Okay. All right. We're running out of time. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. But see, what I want to point out, though, we have a tappable issue here, which I'm sorry, afterwards, come see me, okay? And we'll spend a little time on that. But you see, we started off with a phobia, okay? And we launched from the phobia off into this other thing, which there's now, you got some stuff going for you, okay, Nate? But see, that's the point I want to mention to you. It's not always just the phobia that you're going to. It may be a reflection of lots of other things, okay? How are you doing with the height?
Well, I didn't tune into it to check.
Okay. You want to tune in and check?
the looking over that's still there.
It's still there, like at a 9?
No, it's lower.
Well, estimate the number for me.
About a 7.
That's what it was before, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a little moisture in our hands?
Yeah.
Is that because you're up in front of everybody?
No, when we started talking about the fear of falling and that, and I've
Oh,
just been
okay.
warming up since then.
Okay. Even though I have this fear of falling,
Even though I have this fear of falling,
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept
Even though I have
myself.
this fear of falling,
Even though I have this fear of falling,
I deeply and completely
I
accept myself.
deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay. Was there only one instance where you had a falling fear or a falling experience?
Yes.
Just one? Okay.
One big one.
Okay. If it was a movie, what would the title of the movie be?
Oh God, not in this lifetime.
Oh God, not in this lifetime. Say that. Oh God, not in this
Oh
lifetime.
God, not in this
Oh
lifetime.
God, not in this
Oh
lifetime.
God, not in this lifetime.
Oh God, not in this lifetime.
Oh,
Okay.
God, not in this lifetime.
Was it something where you looked over a railing? Was that what it was? Was it something else?
No, I fell off.
You actually fell off of what?
I'd rather.
Not say. Oh, okay. But I want you to get into this. Say, even though
Even though
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept.
And I accept anybody else who was involved.
And I accept anybody else who's involved.
Was somebody else involved?
Mhm.
Okay. I might even forgive them.
I might even forgive.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay. Looking over that railing. Say that. Looking over that railing.
Looking over that
Go,
railing.
Close your eyes a moment and tell me if it's still a 7. Why don't you guys go ahead and sit down? And I will see you after the thing, okay? Oh, it's like a 5. Oh, okay. Do you mind doing some more? Okay. Hands are not quite so wet. Okay. Even though I still have some of this.
Even though I still have some of this.
By the way, if I may, and don't answer it unless if it's not appropriate, but is that some kind of an emotion like an anger about something or a guilt about something or something like that? Oh, okay. Even though I have this.
Even though I have this.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply
Even though I
completely
still have some of this.
I still have some of this.
I deeply
I
and
deeply
completely.
and completely accept.
Even though I still have some of this.
Even though I still have some of
I
this.
deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept some.
Remaining whatever it is.
Remaining whatever it is.
Well, you know what it is. You know what it is. Remaining. Go ahead. Remaining.
Remaining.
Okay, raise your arms for me. Remaining.
Remaining.
What does that event remind you of? Is it something you can discuss? Excuse me while I do this, okay?
I'm not sure of the question.
Well, the event, okay, which I don't know what it is, okay, and don't need to know, okay. Does it remind you of anything that would be difficult for you? While you're thinking about that. By the way, why am I tapping her while I ask her the question? Who could guess? Yeah, she's tuned into it. And that's what I was doing with Nate. When he was talking, I believe I was doing that. While he was talking, I started tapping. Why? Because when they're talking about it, they're tuned into it. Whatever it is, even though they're not articulating it well, whatever the issue happens to be, it's there. It's going. So, anyway, does it remind you of anything?
No, just.
Okay. Why don't you tune into that railing thing and tell me if you're still a 5?
No, about a 3 now.
You're about a 3 now. Okay, we're going to do one more round. Just one more round, okay? Even though I still have some of this
No, I still have
height
some of
issue,
this height issue.
okay, and all its related stuff,
All its related stuff.
I deeply and completely accept myself
I deeply and completely accept myself.
and all the people involved.
And all the people involved.
I forgive myself for carrying all this around.
I forgive myself for
How long
carrying
ago
all
was
this
it?
stuff around. Long time.
Well, 10 years, 40 years, what?
40 years.
40 years. Okay, you were a child at the time? Okay. Even though I'm still reacting
Even though I'm still reacting
to little Kim
to little Kim.
and her response to all this height.
Her response to all of it.
And 40 years later, go ahead.
40 years later.
I deeply and completely accept myself
Deeply and completely accept myself.
for carrying all this around
Carrying all this.
and sort of taking the advice
Sort of taking the advice
of a little bitty girl named Kim.
a little bitty girl named Kim.
I wouldn't take the advice from any other little bitty girl.
No, I wouldn't take the advice of any other little
Or any other little bitty guy for that matter.
or any other little
Or even a
bitty
big guy for that matter.
Even a big guy.
Okay. Try it one more time and see if it's still a 3. It's about a 1. Oh, okay. All right, well, there's probably a little bit more to do it, but we're going to run out of time. Can we have a hand for Kim, please? Thank you, Kim. It's 4:58 and a half. Is this good or what? I mean, are we good on time or what? Okay. Nate, as you recall, Nate was up here 2 days ago when we were dealing with the phobias. And as often happens with phobias, it shifted off into some other issue. In this case, it had to do with the military and being in a helicopter. And as you and I worked on it individually, off camera, why you had to jump out of a helicopter thing, with a parachute on, and a lot of it had to do with your ego, and you were being teased to do it. Actually, you were like the resident psychologist in the group, and not the macho guy with all these Marines or whatever they were, right? But anyway, if you recall, his forehead was sweating and things like that, and so we worked on it off camera, and then this morning there's a little bit left over there that we worked on, but I'd like to get your experience with that. So go ahead.
Well, the experience was immediate and very profound, connecting fear of heights to Grand Canyon, to ultimately the issue of the parachute jump out of a helicopter. I was aware of yesterday, last night, and then this morning that something different is happening. I have hypertension, and this morning I took my blood pressure and it was 106/60.
By the way, that was without medication, however. Normally you take medication for it,
Right.
to keep it to like 130/80 or something,
Yeah.
if I remember that right. But
Right.
this morning you woke up, no medication, and it was...
Yeah,
By the way, 106, I don't want to be played doctor, but 106 over what was the number?
60.
60. Okay, that tends to be on the low side, but the
Yeah.
130/80, this is my understanding of normal blood pressure. That's normal for America with our high-fat diet and stress and everything else. I don't know if that's terribly normal, frankly, but it's normal for our circumstance. But you're 106/60.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Anything else about that?
Well, this morning you did tapping on me, and it was incredible having the hands touch the different places.
My hands.
Your hands
Uh-huh.
touching, they were cold, and my body is
Thank you.
warm. But the coldness and the intensity of it created immediate diminishing of whatever residuals I had.
Interesting. Let me make a comment on that if I could. It might be useful. The vast majority of people can do the tapping on themselves, as you did, sitting in your chairs, all during that day we did that, and get results. Sometimes I will find that some people will not make any results at all until I do the physical tapping. Now, isn't that interesting? Okay? And we don't know how to explain that. There's something about the connection between two people. Some people need it, so to speak, and that's more, to me, more in the spiritual realm, evidence of the oneness of it all, the connection of it all, and that is looming to be, a useful part of it. I don't know that it's critical, because a lot of people get results just sitting at home with nobody around, and doing the tapping. Some people have to work with somebody, and then when somebody does the physical tapping on you, that seems to be another level sometime, So. Anyway, thank you, Nate. Okay.